Dark Magician got a new structure deck from the anniversary and got some new support cards, including the Secrets of Dark Magician, a quick play spell that is both a fusion and a ritual spell, Magical Dimension, another quick play spell that summons a spellcaster and also is a disruption, Piercing the Darkness, a continuous spell that draws cards and lets you beat over monsters, and their newest fusion monster, the Dark Magicians, that draws a card every time a spell or trap card is activated. The new skill is what ties them all together, sacrificing their usual playstyle of Navigation and Eternal Soul and instead normal summoning Dark Magician without tributing. We will talk about the skill later in detail. So let's go through the cards one by one. First off, we have a Dark Magician Girl. It is integral in this deck because the skill restricts you into only summoning level 6 Dark Spellcasters during your opponent's turn, so this will be our target. It will be also our main fusion material for our Dark Magicians, and also it can be summoned with the Dark Magicians when it is destroyed. Next up we have Dark Magician, of course, a key piece of the deck. It makes the deck all work, and also it can be a normal summon without tributing under our skill. And then we have a copy of Secrets of Dark Magic. That is the fusion and ritual spell of the deck. It is both, you can choose which you use, but we will only be using it to fusion summon. It is also searchable with our skill, which we will talk about later. Next up we have a Summoner's Art. It is just a searcher for Dark Magician. You can also play Apprentice if you have it, which we'll talk about in the expensive version. We have a copy of Dark Magical Circle that also comes with the structure deck. When this card is activated, you can open the top 3 cards of the deck and add a spell or trap or a Dark Magician that has listed Dark Magician in its card text, and add it to your hand. And you can place the rest of them on top of the deck in any order. And also, if a Dark Magician is normal special summoned, you can banish a card on the field. Usually, normally you use this card with Navigation or Eternal Soul as disruption, so you can summon it during your opponent's turn and banish your opponent's cards during their combos. But since we are locked into only summoning Dark Magician Girl during our opponent's turn, we can't use it as disruption, so we can only use it as an effect that we trigger ourselves during our own turn when we normal summon our Dark Magician. It also helps us dig into our deck to find copies of Dark Magician and also other cards like the Quick Play spell. Anyway, Magical Dimension, that is also a searchable spell from our skill, and if we control a spellcaster, we can target one monster we control, tribute that target, and then special summon a spellcaster from our hand, and then destroy a monster on the field. So this is both our disruption and also our way of summoning Dark Magician Girl during our opponent's turn. We have Piercing the Darkness. If you normal special summon a non-token normal monster, you can draw a card. And also, when an attack is declared involving an opponent's monster and a monster you control that is a level 5 or higher level monster, or a special summon using a normal monster, or a fusion, synchro, or exceed summon using a normal monster, you can basically make your monster gain attack equal to your opponent's attack. So it's like Dark Rebellion, kinda. So it basically lets you beat over any of your opponent's monsters. Next up we have a Magical Mallet. I like to play this card in the free-to-play version just to increase the consistency of the deck, and also help us draw into cards like Dark Magician Girl to use our skill, and also tech options like a Magical Circle and Magic Deflector. So next up, it's Magic Cylinder. That is a free card we got from the anniversary, and also works well with the skill because the skill allows us to return to the deck to grab ourselves a Dimension Conjurer. And then we have a copy of Mirror Force. It is also free to obtain, and it always catches people off guard, so I really like this card. You will replace this card with any staple you have, if you have better staples, which we will talk about in the expensive version. Magic Deflector is another staple that I like to play in the free-to-play version. It is obtainable through the card trader, and also it negates every single spell except for normal spells and ritual spells. which is pretty funny because it works really well in the mirror match. It negates Dark Magical Circle, and uh, it negates the Quick Play Magical Dimension, and it negates the Quick Play Secrets of Dark Magic, but also negates your own as well, so you will have to keep that in mind. So you will ideally activate this during your opponent's turn to stop their combos, and during your turn you can use your spells as usual. And for the extra deck, we can't really play too many other cards because the skill locks us to Dark Spellcasters, so we're only playing a single copy of the Dark Magicians. So this card requires a Dark Magician or a Dark Magician Girl plus a Spellcaster. Once per turn, if both players activate a spell or trap card, you can draw a card. And if it is a spell or trap, you can set it, and if it's a quick play or a trap card, you can activate it that turn. So it's like Decode Talker Heat Soul if you play Master Duel. But you also get to set the spells or traps that you draw immediately, which is pretty cool. If this card is destroyed, you can special summon a Dark Magician and a Dark Magician Girl from your hand, deck, or graveyard, which we are playing 3 copies of. So we will always have a target, basically. So now let's talk about the skill. The skill has quite a bit of text in it, so we will go through it slowly. During this duel, you can only special summon Dark Spellcaster type monsters. That's why our entire deck is Dark Spellcasters. You can also play a bit of Warriors if you're playing Dark Cavalry, but since our deck is a 1k gem version of the deck, we won't really have access to Cavalry because it's from another structure deck. So you just keep that in mind. And you can also normal summon Dark Magician without tributing. It's really good effect. You can just normal summon Dark Magician as our main normal summon. And also, during our opponent's turn, you cannot special summon monsters from a hand or graveyard except level 6 monsters. So basically, you can only summon Dark Magician Girl and nothing else during your opponent's turn. So no navigation, no Eternal Soul. The following effect can be used once per turn, and each effect can be used only one time. So return 1 Dark Magician Girl, Magical Dimension, and Magical or Magical Cylinder. It's actually it's a typo over there. Or Magical Cylinder to your deck from your hand, and add a Dimension Conjurer from outside your deck to your hand, and also add a Dark Magician Girl from your deck to your hand. So that's why we're playing Magical Cylinder, because it also works with the skill to grab ourselves a Dimension Conjurer, which we will go over right now. If this guy is normal or special summoned, you can add a Magical Dimension from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So it searches Magical Dimension, and it itself is a spellcaster, so it is a target for your Magical Dimension to tribute. And when it's sent to a graveyard from your field, you can draw cards equal to the number of spellcaster monsters you control, and then place back that many cards from your hand to the top of your deck. So that's a pretty bad effect actually, because you don't actually gain any card advantage, and also you place cards on top of your deck, so you can't actually fix your hand, because you are going to draw the card that you just put back next turn anyway. It's a pretty bad effect, but you use it mainly to search a Magical Dimension, which is our main form of disruption. And also the second effect of skill is if you control Dark Magician, you can add the Fusion Ritual spell from a deck or graveyard to your hand, which is pretty useful. It is a straight +1 with no cost whatsoever. So usually when you normal summon Dark Magician, you will grab your quick play, and then you can fusion summon with, let's say, a Dark Magician Girl from your hand, and you can make the Dark Magicians. So this is the expensive version. We're playing more expensive staples, of course, and also we're playing Apprentice's Illusion Magician. So this is our main searcher for Dark Magicians instead of Summoner's Art, because it itself is also a spellcaster, which is useful for a fusion material, and also it boosts your monster's attack, which is one of the main weaknesses of the deck that we will talk about later. And of course we're playing expensive staples like MST, Triple Warning Point, and Compulse. We can't actually play IDP, because IDP special summons to your field, and the skill restricts you to only special summoning Dark Spellcasters. That's why we can't really use IDP. I learned that the hard way. And in the extra deck, we're playing all Dark Spellcaster monsters. There's actually a surprising amount of Dark Spellcaster extra deck monsters that we can play. Big Eye is one of them. It doesn't look like a Dark Spellcaster, but it is in fact a Dark Spellcaster. We're also playing Ebon Illusion Magician, stuff like those, and also we Witch's Apprentice, which is a generic link 2 for Darks, which is also a Dark Spellcaster. And you can also play a few copies of Goki Octostretch, which is a warrior monster that is a hand trap to protect yourself from battle damage. And because it's a warrior monster, it is also a valid fusion material for Dark Cavalry, which you can also make with this deck. But my version focuses on making the Dark Magicians and just sitting on a bunch of staples. Because Dark Cavalry does require you to have cards in your hand for it to discard. Which I just prefer having staples instead of cards in your hand to discard. So that you can modify your deck if you like Dark Cavalry more, but yeah, that is what I prefer. Okay, so let's go through the pros and cons of the deck. 1. This deck is really consistent. Dark Magician Girl and a copy of Magical Cylinder and Magical Dimension are all starters. It gets you to Dimension Conjurer with your skill, and also we have 3 copies of Dark Magician and ways to search it. That also gets you to your fusion monster. 2. This deck is really accessible in Disruption. Because of our skill, we can always search Magical Dimension with a spellcaster on field for us to tribute, and that basically guarantees that we always have a way to pop our opponent's monster during our opponent's turn. And 3. This deck is really cheap. As you can see, you don't really need multiple copies of the structure deck, and even a lot of other cards from main boxes or mini boxes. A single structure deck can get you a deck like this, and it's really functional, and it still works really well. And the cons. 1. This deck has really harsh restrictions because of our skill, Magician's Magic. It locks us into only Dark Spellcasters, which limits a lot of the options that we can play in both the main and extra deck. And also we can only special summon basically only Dark Magician Girl during our opponent's turn, which is a real shame because we can't actually use Dark Navigation or Eternal Soul to summon Dark Magician during our opponent's turn, which really hurts the deck inviability. And also, 2, the deck has a low damage cap, which, because our main way of beating our opponent is with Dark Magician Girl, which only has 2000 attack, and Dark Magician, which only has 2500. That's not a lot, and also, the fusion is kind of hard to make, and also, it is not even 3000 attack. It's pretty low. And that could be solved if you play the expensive version and play Purged Illusion, but that's like a quick effect that can be only used once. And also, it still can't really protect Dark Magician Girl, which is kind of a problem. And 3. You're heavily relying on a single fusion monster or a single Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl all of the time. You're only relying on the problem of only relying on a single big monster, which is not even that big on your field, is that if it gets disrupted, you're often left with not a lot on field, which is kind of a problem. So overall, I'm a bit surprised that this deck is actually quite decent. I mean, obviously you want to play more staples if you have them, like in the expensive version, but I think it's pretty worth it to spend 1000 gems on a single structure deck and give this deck a try. Okay, so we are going first in this replay, and our opponent is also playing the same deck. Yeah, this deck is quite popular in ranked, which is kind of understandable. It is Dark Magicians after all. Okay, we were gonna use Summoner's Art to search Dark Magician, using the skill to grab us Dimension Conjurer and also a Dark Magician Girl from our deck. And we are gonna normal summon on a Dimension Conjurer. And we're going to grab a copy of Magic Dimension from our deck and set 2 cards. Our friend is activating MST. We're going to chain Magic Deflector. It negates every single spell except for normal spells or ritual spells in the entire turn, which includes MST and his copy of Dark Magical Circle. He's going to still normal summon Dark Magician. He can't banish a card because it's negated. And he's going to search his secrets. He can't activate it this turn because it's negated. But we also can't activate our Magical Dimension because it is also a quick play spell and it also gets negated. Anyway, we're going to normal summon Dark Magician, activate the secrets of Dark Magic during our turn, make the Dark Magicians attack over his monster, pass back to him. He's going to activate Dark Magical Circle, we're going to draw a card, and he scoops. So now we have the expensive version of the deck. We're also going first this time. We have access to a lot better staples, which really helps the deck a lot. So we're going first. We're gonna use our skill, shuffle back the Magical Dimension, and grab ourselves a Dimension Conjurer, which will be our normal summon. We'll grab our Magical Dimension from a deck once again, set 3, and pass back to our opponent. Our opponent is gonna activate Warrock Mountain, which we will immediately MST. That also prevents him from searching a card because it is a free spell. And he's going to try to attack. We're going to activate a Magical Dimension. That summons a Dark Magician Girl from our hand. And we're just going to wait for this beautiful animation to go through. And then he doesn't actually have enough attack, but we're going to pop it. And Dimension Conjurer will draw us a card, put back a card on the top of our deck, I guess. Doesn't really matter. He's going to summon a big monster, which we will compulse. We're going to draw back the card that we just put back on top of our deck, which accomplishes basically nothing from our Dimension Conjurer, but we're going to normal summon Dark Magician, activate our skill, grab ourselves a Fusion spell, set 1, and attempt to go for a lethal. We can crack down, but we can chain our copy of Fusion spell, which is really useful because it is a quick play spell. Don't forget that. We're gonna make Dark Magicians, and that also means he doesn't have a target on field for his crackdown. We're gonna attack for a bit of damage with Dark Magicians. He's gonna activate Warrock Mountain, but that also procs our own Dark Magicians to draw a card and set. We draw Magic Cylinder, and he doesn't know that. And he's gonna, we're gonna Warding Point his normal summon. He's gonna try to attack. We Magic Cylinder and deal barely enough for a lethal. Overall, I think this deck is pretty worth investing because it's so cheap, but also expect to see a lot of this deck running around in ladder in the following few days.